You really think I don't know what you're doing? His voice cracked through the packed office, sharp as broken glass. She didn't blink. I know exactly what you stole. A smirk flickered across the woman's lips. You don't have a thing. Oh, but I do. Everything that matters. The appraiser's staccato footsteps echoed behind them. Someone care to explain why these documents list different owners? Her jaw tensed. You have no right. Rachel shook, but her voice cut through. You forged her name on every check, 5 years running, it ends now. There was a hush, half-breathed gasps, the rustle of legal pads, muggy with the scent of cold sweat and scorched coffee. Try to talk your way out of this, Rachel hissed. 5 days ago, not a single soul in this room would have believed she'd stand, much less speak, like this. To understand how she ended up here, you have to go back to when $46.82 was all she had, and her life fit into a dusty trunk. Rachel pressed her forehead to the splintered steering wheel, her knuckles white, breath visible in the cold morning mist. Her online banking app glared, $46.82 available balance. Each digit felt like a judgment. Before her, a battered street sign read Interstate 40 West, Ashcroft Junction, Arizona. It barely clung to its post, just as she clung to the last of her options. Out the cracked passenger window, a heap of cardboard boxes sighed under a weak November drizzle. Her phone buzzed, she jerked. A text flashed sharp as a slap. See you at the will reading, Rachel. Pack light. Beverly Curtis, stepmother since she was 12, might as well have signed it with a sneer. Just one more mile, Rachel whispered, eyes flicking to her phone. Her hands shook. She glanced at the worn Polaroid tucked between the dashboard cracks, a girl clinging to a smiling woman's waist. That smile was gone. 3 years earlier, divorce papers scrawled away her savings, her house, even her mother's jewelry. All that remained was the relic she'd been summoned to reclaim. Roadrunner Diner and Lot, parcel ID 78,321. If she walked away, there'd be nothing left, except the shame of letting Beverly win. Rain hammered the roof as she pulled onto the weed-choked drive. An old neon sign jutted from the gloom, its turquoise paint flecked, letters fizzled out. The diner squatted beside a peeling white house and a swayback shed. Broken glass winked from the steps. She opened the car door, leftover rain bit her ankles. From the diner's porch, Beverly stood between her twins, Sloane Curtis and Tommy, both in pressed coats, car keys spinning idly. Sloane grinned wide. You're late as ever, Ratch. Tommy's laugh was sharp. Nice wheels, that trunk looks older than you are. Rachel forced herself to step forward. Guess the rose gold Porsche wouldn't fit all my baggage. She nodded toward the porch, chin raised. Beverly's eyes raked over the shed as if daring Rachel to trip. You always had a flair for the dramatic. Pity there's nothing left here but rot. Even the rats have quit. Sloane snorted. We took a bet, how long you'd last before running home, want in. Rachel's lips trembled. It's not a home and I'm not running. Inside, the lawyer, middle-aged, tired, stood with a grim folder. This is the last transfer from Helen Sullivan, deceased, the deed to the Roadrunner property, all back taxes paid. He looked sharply at Rachel. There may be additional holdings requiring verification. Beverly arched a flawless brow. Change of heart, give back the keys and I'll let you keep your pride. I'll look around first, Rachel said, steadying herself. The lawyer handed over a thick envelope. Inside, sandwiched between dull deeds, lay a battered index card in her mother's script. Look where roots run deepest, R. A brittle old key was taped below. If you've ever watched someone steal what was yours and felt powerless to stop it, keep listening. Sometimes, the only way to win is to trust what's hidden beneath the surface. It didn't matter that half of Ashcroft wanted her gone. Rachel had nothing left to lose. As clouds puckered with drizzle, she circled the yard's border, shoulders hunched, phone clenched. The shed loomed low, its padlocked door rhymed with rust, a ghost of blue paint whispering Helen's tools in barely legible script. Rachel's boots squelched as she crouched. She remembered her mother's laugh, how it splintered through the quiet of old evenings, always quick to spot the flaw in a scheme. The padlock stung metallic and cold. Fingers tight from cold and nerves, she fitted the old key and twisted. A scraping pop and the door swung open with a heavy sigh. Wasps' nests papered one corner, clutter filled the rest. Lifting a tarp, she found the hatch, a square, wood-framed iron ring. For a breathless second she stared, piecing together her mother's clue. Roots run deepest. Beneath the shed, foundation slabs, 1, 2, 3, each pitted and marred with faint, unfamiliar initials. Beneath the third slab, a shallow depression. Rachel's hands braced, she groaned the slab up a quarter inch, enough to wedge a crowbar, barely enough. Tense with effort, she pried until, with a gasp, it gave way, revealing a hole lined with cinder block and the tang of old paper. Whatever slept here, the others hadn't found it. She'd uncovered something real, something worth risking everything for. Rachel's phone vibrated again, a warning, 5 days, appraiser, clean up or they call county. This time from Sloan, just enough time to dig if she dared. Rain hissed overhead, like the ghosts of every wrong turn. Rachel fetched her small flashlight from the trunk and, heart pounding, slid feet first into the narrow gap. Cobwebs clung to her neck, but the flashlight's pale beam illuminated a chest, covered in torn oilcloth and wedged beneath damp joists. Fingers raw, she dragged it out. Her breath shivered as she pried up the owl-carved lid. Inside, bundles bound with red string, letters, stamped deeds, brittle receipts. Atop, a ledger, Helen's looping hand tallying names, addresses, monthly rents, all inked by year. Several tabs were tagged. Winslow Court, Ranahan Duplex. Monter Drive, properties Rachel never knew. She unfolded a grimy envelope, eyes tracing the sculpted seal. Inside, 6 property deeds and deposit slips. Each the same pattern, a trust registered to Rachel Sullivan. Her pulse stuttered. These weren't just memories, they were receipts, proof of everything Beverly claimed never existed. A letter, Helen's voice welled up from the page, time-worn and trembling. Rach, if you find this, you bested me at hide-and-seek. The twins aren't to be trusted with these keys. They never saw value in building, only breaking. I did what I could, even as your step-family circled, waiting to slice up the past. There's a trust in your name. If anyone says otherwise, you tell them, clouds clear eventually. Age. Rachel's mouth turned dry. Trust, deeds. She snatched a deposit record, monthly payments arriving from a Barrett Trust LLC, names she'd never seen but all rooted to Helen and now to Rachel herself. The numbers added up, thousands, maybe more, every month. A memory flashed, sharp-edged, Beverly sneering at a kitchen table, her gold-ringed hand clutching bank envelopes. It's all been spent already. You wouldn't understand. Money like this disappears overnight. But the evidence told another story. Rachel's own trust, untouched by years of lies. She staggered back, the chest heavy in her lap, head reeling. Outside, sirens shrieked. Rachel stilled. Was she being watched, or was it just the storm deepening? She pressed her knuckles to the concrete. A weight she'd carried for years began to lift, just enough to let in the idea of hope. Rachel packed the deeds, the ledger, and her mother's letter into her backpack, then climbed back into the gray drizzle. Her mind jittered with possibility and dread. She locked herself in the car, documents strewn across the backseat, and called the only local attorney she remotely trusted, Will Garvey, the town's scrappy generalist. Will, it's Rachel, her voice shook. I found something, deeds, a trust, it's notarized my name. Rachel, wait, you mean, those missing property records? Will's accent rolled rough. That's enormous, I'll need to see everything, you at the diner. Give me an hour, there's a problem, I'm being squeezed. The appraiser is coming Thursday. If they lowball it, I lose the lot to Beverly. Bruising tactics, Will whistled low. Bring all you got to my office. Neon sign, 2-story brick corner of Griggs and Main, will show her smoke won't clear her tracks. She clicked off, nerves sizzled. This wasn't hope, it was ammunition. Driving through town, Rachel's heart battered her chest. Her muscles coiled, ready for every blast from the past. She pictured Beverly's face when she saw the deeds. When she learned that the cash she'd siphoned, the rentals she'd hidden, had always belonged to Rachel. Each bump in the road jarred loose a new fear, a new memory. Sloane, age 19, pawing through her mother's jewelry, Tommy sawing keys off an old piano, giggling as Beverly stomped in with a glass of Riesling. Some people get all the breaks. You take what you can or lose it all, Beverly would crow. Rachel parked outside Garvey's musty brick office. Fog dappling the window, she steeled herself, clutching the folder to her chest. The front office was half-lit, haunted by the clack of a temperamental ceiling fan. Will leaned over a battered desk, tie askew. She dumped the papers out with a shuddering breath. He thumbed through them, jaw sagging. You weren't kidding, these properties, all still active, some under lease, and payments monthly, you see this? He tapped the ledger. This isn't pocket change, Rachel, you've got a portfolio here. Rachel's voice came out thin. Beverly's been collecting the rent for years. She told me everything was lost in the divorce. Will shook his head, incredulous. The trust's airtight, you can take this up with the state, IRS maybe. No, Rachel's panic ticked faster. She's got an appraiser coming Thursday. If she undercuts the value, the county can pull the property. She wants to scrape me off the map. Will snapped his fingers. That's not gonna happen. I'll call Oscar at Records, get the property files in by tomorrow. You keep your head low. And watch that family Sloane's plugged into every realtor in 3 counties. Rachel's phone buzzed, this time a voicemail. Sloane's icy voice, careful where you poke, Ratch, some things are better left buried. Rachel's smile was thin. The only thing buried is the truth, and I'm about to dig it up. In the gray quiet of the parking lot, Rachel let herself exhale. The hunt was on. In the pitiless hours before dawn, Rachel crashed at the old house, her mother's bedroom still thick with the scent of rose water, the sheets brittle. She spent sleepless hours categorizing paperwork, stifling a dizziness that felt part exhaustion, part terror. When morning finally bled in, Rachel was at the county records office by 8. Oscar, a soft-spoken file clerk with a coffee addiction, peered at her from behind horn-rimmed glasses. Rachel didn't expect you. You folks keeping warm out there? Barely, Rachel answered, pushing the folder over. He scanned the top form, eyebrows rocketing up. You serious? As a heart attack, can you cross-check if these properties are still generating revenue? Oscar tapped keys, then double-checked his screen. They sure are, 3 in Winslow, 6 units in all. Rent checks cleared last week. He clicked for more details. All routed through a holding account, not in your name. Rachel's voice was a whisper. Who's been signing? Oscar tapped, then blinked up at her. All electronic, user initials BC. Rachel's breath left her in a rush. The back of the room rattled, a door slamming as Sloane strode in, portfolio swinging wide. She laid an envelope flat on Oscar's counter. Transfer of ownership, please. Oscar hesitated. Did you just buy another property, Sloane? Official transfer from my mother's estate, Sloane replied. Her eyes never left Rachel. Rachel stepped up, lowering her voice. If you're so confident, why the rush? Sloane's lacquered nails tapped a frantic staccato. Don't worry about us, you never knew how to win. Maybe, Rachel said quietly, but I know how not to lose. Will texted as Rachel walked out. Press coming Thursday. If evidence holds, this could go statewide. Don't let them corner you. By twilight, Rachel's nerves jangled. She drove back to the Roadrunner diner, headlights bouncing off slick gravel, heart sick with dread. The shed loomed ahead. Inside, in a storage hole behind cracked paint cans, Rachel found a metal cash box, her mother's initials in blue marker. Inside, bank statements, trust paperwork, another thicker folder labeled Barrett Trust, Sullivan R. She snapped it open. Within, annual trust disbursements, years' worth, cross-referencing her own social. Deposits frozen since Helen's passing, Rachel's signature never used. Balance, just under $5 million. 5 million, the truth so vast it gave her vertigo. A screen door banged shut behind her. Tommy's voice oiled through the dusk. Thought you'd be gone by now, Ratch. She steeled herself, spine ramrod straight, looking for more trophies. He laughed, but his hands fidgeted, just seeing what you left behind. Funny, she replied, folder clutched tight. That's the only thing you'll ever inherit from me. Tommy's eyes flicked to the folder, then away. What's that? More junk. Nothing you'd understand, she spat, stepping past him into the night. Beverly stood by the house's porch light, voice low. We always knew you'd make a mess. Leave the past buried, Rachel. Not everything is yours to dig up. Rachel turned, fire flaring in her veins. You never built anything worth saving. Beverly's lips tightened, voice just above a hiss. You don't know the half of it. For a moment, Rachel thought she glimpsed fear in Beverly's stare, but it vanished. Rachel slept barely a wink. Thunder crowded the window. She rose with the sun, high on dread. The next morning, we'll call at 7 brisk, urgent. The IRS division chief called. Your paperwork triggered their alert for undisclosed estate income. News crews are sniffing. They want a statement. Rachel's mind reeled. The tax authority here. Not just them. Once the paper runs this, Beverly's cooked. But they'll use every trick they have to stonewall. Be prepared. Rachel bit her lip. Go public then. Will side, you sure? Tomorrow's the appraisal. All the more reason. If I don't drive the narrative, they'll erase everything. Will's tone softened. You always did kick harder than you looked. Just keep your papers straight and don't let them talk over you. Rachel called the local journalist who'd once written her mother's obituary. She laid it all out, her trembling voice finally clear. He promised to fact-check and publish by evening. The day of the appraisal, fog curled slow and thick along the roadside. News vans staked out the crumbling fence. Rachel, teeth gritted, clasped her documents and walked into the old diner. Beverly waited inside, flanked by Sloan and Tommy, each oozing impatience. Look who thinks she's the queen of the dump, Sloan drawled. The appraiser's slick hair, starch-stiff tie shuffled papers. Whose lot is this, really? A reporter's pen poised in the thick air. Rachel took her seat at the folding table, every muscle taut. Beverly steeled her gaze. You can make this easy, Rachel, transfer everything. I'll give you a cut, enough to start over in some other backwater. Rachel recited steady, I'm not selling and I'm not leaving, this is mine. The appraiser frowned. I'm only here to value assets, unless there's a legal dispute. Rachel slid the folder forward. There is. These records show misappropriated funds, unauthorized transfers, hidden trusts. Beverly's hand closed around her purse. You have no proof. Rachel spread the deeds, banking slips, trust statements. Her voice packed each paper with power. Every cent that should have come to me, every check signed by you, every rent you pocketed. Sloan's voice cracked. You can't prove that. Mom set up the transfers. Rachel's laughter was harsh. Read the dates. The trust existed before she married your family. You doctored the accounts right after the funeral. Tommy snorted. No one cares about paperwork. It's her word against ours. A flood of camera flashes fired as Will, standing at the back, interjected. Let's not ignore the letter from the IRS confirming audit for hidden estate income. They're watching, right now. Beverly, for the first time, faltered. Sweat beaded her brow. You're bluffing. Rachel's hands shook as she pressed the final document across the table, a forensic accounting report. You forged her name on every check, 5 years running. It ends now. Sloan's chair scraped back. Mom, say something. The appraiser flipped the ledger open. These signatures, this is serious fraud. A hush. Rachel felt the world lean in. The dialogue from the cold opened sharp in her ears, now alive in the moment. You really think I don't know what you're doing? I know exactly what you stole. You don't have a thing. Oh, but I do, everything that matters. The appraiser's pen hovered. Someone care to explain why these documents list different owners? Beverly's jaw tensed. You have no right. Rachel stood, letting years of fear boil down to one unbreakable sentence. Try to talk your way out of this. Gasps, a ripple surged through the reporters. Oscar, the county clerk, moved in with a printout. Statement from tax authority. Audit begins now. All related accounts frozen pending investigation. Panic swept the Curtis camp. Sloan hissed, "You ruined us." Rachel's answer was calm, cold as the rain. "You did that yourself." The appraiser nodded, signaling to the journalist. "You might want to get a photograph of this. It's rare to see someone win against odds like these." A swell of whispers, then applause, hushed amazement threading the gloom. Rachel sat, heart thudding, as Beverly and the twins wilted under the lights and the weight of the truth. As the story hit the newswires and talk radio, Ashcroft's reactions ricocheted down every Main Street storefront, coffee shop, and kitchen. The headline was everywhere. Family fraud unveiled, Curtis matriarch under audit for stolen estate funds. The IRS froze Beverly's assets. County officials rescinded her property contracts on the rental units. Longtime clients dumped her family's realty business. Sloan and Tommy were shut out of 3 investment deals. Her neighbor across the street, once her closest ally, crossed the road to shake Rachel's hand in the grocery aisle. "Never thought you'd pull it off," the neighbor said, smiling. "Proud of you. About damn time those folks got theirs." "Thank you," Rachel replied, meant it with every bone. A week later, her lawyer called. "With the audit underway and the deeds confirmed, every dime is yours, Rachel. You can use it to rebuild the diner or start anything else you dream." "Maybe a bakery," she laughed, voice free. "Something that brings people together. Too many lies in this place already." "There'll be folks lining up," he replied, "just to taste what you built with your own hands." With every day that passed, the pall over Ashcroft lifted. Beverly's reputation collapsed. Real estate firms blacklisted her. Sloan and Tommy, once the town's golden children, watched their social media fill with the bitter taste of exile. Rachel, once the afterthought, became the quiet legend people spoke of in admiration and a little awe. 6 months later, Rachel stitched the Roadrunner's battered interior into a cozy cafe, its turquoise gleam restored. The counter overflowed with her mother's recipes, sourdough rising in sunlit windows. Some truths she'd learned refused to stay buried. They rise sharp and bright, no matter how deep others try to hide them. If this story sparked something in you, a memory of being dismissed, a moment you decided not to back down, then maybe it's time to trust your own roots. Sometimes, real power comes not from what others leave behind, but from the relentless stubbornness of starting again. And it's in rebuilding, board by board, hand by hand, that we claim what's truly ours. On the first anniversary of reclaiming the Roadrunner, Rachel found herself standing behind the counter beneath the flickering blue neon, breath clouding in the morning chill as she watched steam rise from the first pot of coffee. Sunlight crept through the patched blinds, painting the old counter gold. Pastry boxes lined the shelves, biscuits browning in tidy rows. The quiet felt different these days, not empty, more like a promise. At 7 sharp, the bell above the door jangled. Oscar, the county clerk, ducked inside, cheeks flushed from the wind. "You open?" he asked, already grinning. Rachel gestured to the corner booth. "Always, cinnamon rolls, fresh today. Try not to eat the entire pan." He sat, glancing around with something like pride. "Can't believe you still serve breakfast in the middle of nowhere, not after all that mess." Rachel poured coffee, her voice lighter than it had been in years. "Funny thing about roots, they go deeper than most folks expect." Oscar nodded and after a sip cleared his throat. "You heard about the Curtises?" A pause. "Beverly showed up at the assessor's office last week, asked if we'd reconsider unfreezing her accounts. Bogged down in court, lawyers circling." "Let them." Rachel's smile was easy, a little sad. Ashcroft finally saw through them. Took long enough. Oscar watched her, old sympathy in his eyes. You're not worried they'll try something again? Rachel leaned on the counter. They can spin their wheels all they want. The law's on my side now. Besides, she raised the mug in a toast, I built this once from nothing. I can do it twice if I have to. A pause and then laughter, sudden and free, filled the narrow space. A few minutes later, the door creaked again. Will Garvey this time, tie as crooked as ever. He waved a sheaf of letters at her, face flushed. That wasn't just the local paper, you know. Got calls from Tucson, Phoenix. It's all over the state. A state air turns community cafe. They want interviews. Rachel rolled her eyes but grinned. Tell them I'm busy. Got cinnamon rolls rising. We'll set down a slim white envelope. Official word, the trust is permanently transferred. No appeals pending. Everything's yours clean, no liens, no further audits. They can't touch you. She slid the envelope open, hands only shaking a little. Know what's strange? She murmured. After all those years hiding, fighting, now that it's over, I keep waiting for someone to show up and knock it all down again. Will studied her with a smile. That's what happens when you grow up never knowing where you'll land. But now this. He glanced around at the small morning crowd, a mother with 2 kids, a couple of ranch hands, an elderly neighbor folding a paper at the window. This is solid ground. Rachel nodded slowly. You think folks will really let it go? Will snorted, please. The only legacy the Curtises have now is faint embarrassment and half their old friends pretending not to know them. Dust settles fast in a small town. Oscar, mouthful of pastry, mumbled, You'll fill this place every weekend come spring. Words out, best coffee west of Flagstaff. The bell dinged again, this time Sloane Curtis in jeans and a stiff blazer, eyes red-rimmed but dry. Every gaze in the diner snapped to her. Rachel's breath caught. The old fear tried to curl up her spine, but she held herself steady. Sloane hesitated, then approached the counter, voice low but even. Can we talk? Rachel weighed her answer, then gestured to the end of the bar. 10 minutes, no drama. Sloane folded her arms, gaze darting to Oscar and Will. Alone. Rachel thought for a heartbeat, then shook her head. Nothing here is hidden anymore. A sigh and Sloane sat. Fine, her words tangled. I wanted you to know I'm leaving town. Tommy too, Mom's, she's lawyering up, blaming everyone but herself. That's her problem now. I just thought maybe you'd want to hear it from me. Rachel set a mug down, kept her eyes steady. I don't want revenge, Sloane, not even an apology, but I do want you to understand why this matters. Sloane stared at the mug, hands trembling. You never fit here. We made sure you stayed out. I'm not proud of it. She sniffed. But you fought for this place. You deserve it more than we ever did. Rachel softened a fraction. Took me a while to believe that myself. A silence, awkward at first, then gentler. You really keeping the house? Sloane asked. Rachel nodded. The house, the diner, the rentals, all of it. Not because of what it's worth, but because of what she built. Her throat tightened. And what I can build. Sloane bolted her coffee, then rose, shouldering her bag. Good luck, Rachel. Rachel let her go without a word. Something in her eased, the spell of old rivalries cracking at last. As the morning rolled on, the cafe filled, locals and newcomers, hands full of business cards, children dragging tattered lunchboxes. Rachel moved among them, greeting each by name. By noon, the last of the cinnamon rolls were gone. She boxed up a slice of cake for Oscar, handed Will a bag of old receipts, just for laughs, she teased, and wiped down the countertops that once felt like tombstones. At the edge of the lot, the press van idled, a hopeful reporter waving as Rachel stepped into the thin Arizona sunlight. She wasn't running anymore. Later that afternoon, Rachel climbed the steps to the battered house next door. The rooms were bright now, windows repaired, old quilts aired on the line. She sank into her mother's rocking chair, cradling the battered ledger in her lap, fingers trailing the faded script. A knock, Will holding a battered envelope. One last delivery. Almost forgot Oscar found this under the county safe, dated 10 years ago, for you. Rachel took it, the paper ragged, spidery writing unmistakable. Rach. If you're reading this, you trusted yourself enough to keep going. Don't let anyone tell you where you can grow. The world's full of broken fences, daughter. Make your own gate. Age. There were tears this time, hot and healing. She pressed the note close, then tacked it on the fridge beside an old Polaroid, a girl's arms wrapped tight around her smiling mother. For the first time in years, she saw herself not as the afterthought or the orphan, but as the survivor, the one who dared to begin again. The cafe thrummed for the rest of the spring and into the lazy, blue horizon days of summer. Rachel's hands toughened from dough and paperwork, seeds planted in the yard spelled out welcome, and laughter echoed where silence used to reign. People came for coffee, for stories, for the sense that things could start over and still grow strong. Sometimes they asked her how she did it, how she beat the odds, wrested her home from the jaws of bitterness and greed. She'd just smile, pour another mug, and say quietly, "You'd be surprised how strong roots get when someone tries to rip them out." And as dusk shimmered on the old neon, Rachel looked out over the golden fields, a gentle wind slipping through the poplars, and knew peace, not just for a moment, but for keeps. Because after all the loss and all the storms, she'd built more than a business or a new life. She'd reclaimed her mother's legacy, her own resilience, and the sturdy, sheltering hope that welcomes anyone willing to push past fear and claim what's truly theirs. Sometimes that's all it takes, the smallest seed in good earth, tended with patience and a stubborn love that never quite gives up. That was what she had now, not just her inheritance, but her own story, unmistakably hers, and yet echoed in anyone who's ever fought to come home. And in that final slant of light through the kitchen window, Rachel felt it. Not vindication, not even triumph, but a quiet certainty that this was what her mother had hoped for all along. The Roadrunner stove ticked with residual heat. The new bell on the cafe door pealed for whoever might next need shelter. That evening, after locking up and wiping flour from her palms, Rachel took her nightly ritual. Tea on the back step, dusk soft upon the fields, the faint murmur of voices drifting from the diner's porch. From here, all her worries, once so sharp, seemed to unfurl and dissolve, old wounds closing for good. A gravel crunch startled her. She turned, mug halfway to her lips. A teenage girl stood at the gate, backpack slung low, face hesitant but hopeful. Sorry," the girl said. "I heard you sometimes let folks do homework here. Miss Landry at the school said it was okay." Rachel smiled and stood, brushing dust from her jeans. "Any friend of Miss Landry's is welcome." She held the door open, the house filled with the evening's leftover honeyed light. "You hungry?" The girl nodded, relief soft on her shoulders. "My grandma says you make the best grilled cheese in 3 counties." "Your grandma is very wise," Rachel said softly. "Come on in." As they crossed the threshold, Rachel caught sight of the Polaroid on the fridge, Helen's handwriting below. She felt her mother's spirit near, not as a memory or ache, but as a promise fulfilled. Later, as the girl bent over her books and Rachel cut thick bread, laughter drifted through the open window. Oscar and Will lingered on the porch, swapping gossip, sipping strong coffee under the stars. The old wounds of Ashcroft seemed to heal by the smallest kindnesses, a free meal here, a helping hand there, until the town felt stitched back together, a little stronger at every seam. Night settled gentle and new. Rachel watched the kitchen fill, friends, strangers, neighbors, growing roots that threaded through the very floorboards beneath her tired feet. She realized then, it wasn't just about winning back what was stolen, but about refusing to let the world stay small and mean. With each cup of cocoa, story shared, and smile offered, the Roadrunner glowed against the night, a signal for all who needed a place to land. And Rachel at last knew she was truly home,